At the beginning of last summer, we released a video about how we plan to integrate our lead acid and lithium battery banks so they would automatically charge the lithium batteries via a DC to DC charger. Well, our plans have changed. We lost another battery. And the way they're wired, we don't trust running the fridge and stuff, so we've turned everything off. Luckily, we have a it's throwing 13 volts now, see that? Anyway, we have a Euhomy, it's called, and it plugs in with this wire, and it goes to a little battery on a shelf down there that we keep. A little 100 amp hour, weighs less than 20 pounds, lays on its side, it's lithium. Solar charges whenever we need to, which is about once every 2-3 months. This fridge will run for 6 days. 6 days on 100 amp hours before it gets down to about 11.5 or 11.6 volts. So it's crazy efficient. We have it on the eco mode, and wow, nothing like it. So that's what we're up to. The bad battery is going to have to be replaced. I'm going to put a couple of smaller AGMs in place of it. Anyway, I have got things to do. I've got to read a book and drink a cup of coffee. Hey, Cher. In 15 hours, the battery has not dropped 1/10 of a volt. Isn't that crazy? That's why we get 7 or 8 days out of a single charge for the fridge. Here we are.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, indeed.
Another good trip.
Another good trip.
Could have been better.
Yeah, it could have been better. We got more battery work to do. We knew the batteries were going bad, though. After some quick investigating, we determined that both of our 4D batteries were bad, so we replaced the two 4Ds with 4 6 volts wired in series to make 12 volts.
It has much on it.
Fitting the 4 6-volt batteries into the existing battery compartment took just a little bit of extra effort, but it was well worth it. They are now wired. We went ahead and used some bus bars to simplify some of the wiring and also to keep the stuff movable. But after we put everything together and made sure that, and this was the hardest part, was making sure we could get to the water filling caps. Once these 6-volt batteries were set up in series to make a couple of 12-volt banks, we wanted to make sure that we had SAE connectors so that we could both charge and discharge these batteries independently. So not only could the alternator charge and the shore power charge, but we also want to make sure that both solar and other batteries could be used to charge these lead acid banks. So this little panel here, 160 watt panel, even laying it on the forward deck up here yesterday, it was bringing in 9.9 amps all day, even laying on its side, and it was 8.9 to 9.3 amps even with a little bit of shading on it. Absolutely amazing. Completely blew me away. You can see here our other 100 watt panel sitting on top of the Dodger, which also brings in about 8 amps. So I just thought I'd kind of show what we're looking at here. Hopefully that shows up. I just dropped one of our solar panels and we're charging in indirect sunlight, just laying on the side deck where the panel is. We're charging it over 8 amps. 8 plus at 13.3 volts. That is amazing. Once we determined that the lead acid battery banks were able to be charged via the solar panels, we decided that because we're drawing down probably 5 or 6 amps throughout the day, it was important to have additional power available. So we then purchased 8 100 amp hour lithium ion batteries, or lithium iron phosphate batteries, and we went ahead and installed those as 2 primary banks and Then we have 4 additional lithium batteries that we keep on the side for special purposes. So we brought up some batteries and water and whatnot. We'll get these all situated, plugged in and connected to everything. In addition to the lithium iron phosphate batteries, we also picked up a couple of Jackery solar power stations. What we needed was something that would handle 15 amps continuously, and we also wanted something that you could plug in a battery directly to keep it charged as a backup. So all of our other lithium iron phosphate batteries can now charge these 2 larger Jackery inverters. And here we've got one of our other solar generators, one of my sons, and he's putting out about 107, and we're picking up 101 to 102 watts. Not bad. We also charged while we were running 753 watts of AC out. So it does good pass through. It acts as a uninterruptible power supply, UPS. So if we needed to, we could actually connect, PCs and things like that to it. But it seems to be a great machine, and we're looking forward to making coffee. We started by bringing up the new Jackery, and this new Jackery will run all this new stuff we bought. Sherry wants to have Keurig, so we got a new tiny Keurig. Before we actually installed these batteries and a DC to DC charger permanently, we had a storm, and it turns out that we live in an area that does not have a dependable electrical grid. Basically, the electrical grid consists of power lines that in areas are strung from tree branch to tree branch. Whenever it rains too much, and remember this is the Pacific Northwest where it rains 10 months of the year, or when the wind blows too hard, which happens every fall, the power to our house goes out. We have to provide our own electricity for days at a time over the winter, so we chose to take our lithium batteries and their dedicated AC chargers off the boat during the winter months. Now we plan to return them to the boat every spring as part of our annual spring boat maintenance. This should allow us to use the lithium bank. And here we're talking about 12 kilowatts of power at the house during the winter power outages. I thought I'd give you a quick overview of how we've sorted the batteries and set them up in the boat. These batteries that are being pointed to at this time are the 6-volt deep cycle lead acid batteries. They're set up in series for 2 12-volt banks, and this is the engine start battery and the default house bank. The next items being pointed to are the 2 large 90 amp solar power stations. Next we have our first 200 amp hour bank of lithium iron phosphate batteries, and then we have our second bank of 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. While the 200 amp hour banks of lithium iron phosphate batteries are each dedicated to one of the 2 inverter chargers in the saloon, we have a third standalone 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and that is actually used for anything that needs to be plugged in, such as electric blankets, lights, radios, anytime we recharge flashlights, headlights, basically anything that has to receive a charge. That would even include laptops and, tablets. In the aft cabin, we have our third solar power station, which is a smaller 300 watt Jackery Explorer. Now this power station is dedicated to a cockpit refrigerator that we use in particular when we're on an extended trip. The secondary battery, which is a 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, is used to charge the Jackery Explorer if we don't have enough solar. Typically, though, our solar panel that we use for that Jackery has no problems keeping up with whatever draw we have on that refrigerator. In the forward cabin, we have a 20 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, which is used to power entertainment equipment, laptops, small TVs, tablets, whatever you need to power in the forward cabin. As a backup for that battery, we also have a 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery that's located nearby, which is used to serve as a backup in case we need additional power. Both of these are again charged via a solar panel that conveniently sits on the forward deck. Under most conditions in the Pacific Northwest in the summertime, we tend to get a fair amount of sunlight, and so our two primary lithium iron phosphate battery banks, 200 amp hours each, are charged via dedicated solar panels, one panel being dedicated to each of these battery banks. If we're motoring for a long period of time, for several hours at a time, we do tend to plug in chargers to directly charge from the lead acid battery banks to each of the lithium ion banks. That charges typically at only about 6 amps that's per bank, because we don't need more than that. In addition to that, we also have the ability to charge these banks at 20 amp hours per bank while we're on shore power. So here you've got this is the charger we use, and you'll notice it's got an SAE plug, and what we do is we plug this to AC, and the other end we plug into our batteries. And you'll notice the batteries all have SAE connectors. These are the individual ones that feed the 1 and 2 bank. Here's one of our Jackeries. Here are the other Jackeries. Each one of these will put out 15 amps. Can also draw as high as 30 for a short time. Then, another thing we do, when we're on shore power, we will go ahead and plug these 20 amp chargers in, and they charge the battery very quickly. So we have 8 lithium batteries. We typically run 2 banks of 2 batteries each for a total of 400 amp hours. But then we have an additional 400 amp hours of individual batteries that we use directly from solar. These are charged via solar. And that's kind of how we run this. Seems to work very well. We pull them off, of course, for the winter time because we need them at the house. So I thought what I'd do is show, this is one of our Jackeries, and you'll notice that right now I'm getting 98 watts of input. But what's important here is that I actually I'm running 2 inputs. So one could be solar and one could be a battery. We can literally unplug one of these inputs, and you'll notice it only drops down a very little bit. So when it gets up to 95%, it's not accepting as big of a charge. But essentially what this does is it takes 2 separate inputs, one from solar and one from a different battery or from a second solar at the same time, which means this can be recharged, and then this can be used in turn to charge either our lithium ion and or our lead acid battery banks. I'll go ahead and put all of these, I know we're using a lot of equipment here. We've got a couple different MPPT charge controllers. We've got 2 different types of Jackeries, a couple of solar panels, 100 watt and 160 watt. And I'll go ahead and we've also got the batteries too. I'll leave a link to all this stuff in the description. But basically, I just thought I'd show how we are ultimately going to charge everything, because we will be keeping everything portable, because we are going to have to use all of this equipment at the house over the winters.